Good afternoon, everybody. It looks like we've got a great crowd. Appreciate everyone being able to attend today. It's hard to believe that we started back in June and now we're here. It's December and we're on our last educational series. Today we're going to be talking about the application process, the award process, kind of give you some highlights, recap a few things, and provide some new information as well. I'd like just to remind everybody, we are recording the session, so we will post this to the website when it is available. Also, please mute your microphones, and we will do all questions at the end. So if you can hold those, and then you can just unmute yourself when we get to the question and answer period. But with that said, I think it's time to get started. I want to start off and kind of do a little recap for those of you who may be new, but the mission of the Collegiate Purple Star is to recognize an eligible post-secondary institution that has successfully demonstrated a supportive environment for its United States military-affiliated student population from application to graduation. Now remember, this is a voluntary award recognition. Institutions are encouraged, highly encouraged to apply, but you are not required to participate. And yeah, the star might be a little annoying. Just want to get everybody's attention at the beginning. The 15 things that veterans want to know by Psych Armor. Number 10 on the list is it's hard for us to ask for help, and it takes a great deal of trust. I want you to think about those words through the education lens. When we talk about what is the purpose of the CPSI designation, the mission is to provide the award, but the purpose is to embrace military-affiliated students, lay that groundwork for supportive environment, enables integration into the general student population, and it facilitates student goals. CPI is assisting in developing an institution-wide culture of acceptance and trust focused on military-affiliated students. So that's kind of what the big picture is, what we're trying to accomplish. We have a field guide, and I have this highlighted. So the version that we're going to use for the award, make sure you're using the same one. Current version is 1.2, effective May 21st, 2024. And that can be found on the CPSI website. So just make sure as you're going through that this is the version that you're using. Within the field guide, it's laid out into several different sections. The part that you're going to focus on in regards to the standards is going to be part 2. Now, there are 37 standards. Each standard has some guidance, purpose, implementation examples, and documentation examples. What's important to know is when you're going through each standard, follow the standard description. What is the standard asking you? But then make sure to look at the guidance when you're evaluating compliance. Each one of those, the description of the standard and the guidance, contains important details on what our level of expectation is. Also note that implementation examples and those documentation examples are just that. They're just examples. They do not guarantee compliance with a standard. We will weigh what you're providing against the guidance and the description of the standard. So just know that there's some fine differences. The examples will hopefully get you in the ballpark, but it is ultimately how you implement those things that will be key. We have category 1 is the core requirements. Now, these are prerequisites, so they kind of establish that foundation. An institution must be able to successfully demonstrate these 7 expectations, show that they've been achieved before the full evaluation will begin. So what I'm saying is we're going to evaluate category 1 first as those core requirements. If all 7 of the requirements are met, then the review team will look at the rest of the standards. So if you know you're not going to meet all of the standards in category 1, and for some institutions, there was a short window between the launch and the review of the application, that may not be possible. And that's okay. But if you know that you have all 7 of them, all we ask is just please wait till next year to apply. Because once we get done with the 7, if you haven't accomplished them, we're not going to go any farther. These are those 7 standards. They're kind of a highlight. They're not the exact wording that's in the field guide. But I wanted to just focus on the fact that these are foundational standards and they're designed to cover a variety of areas within an institution. So we're going to kind of focus on customer service, operations, management, and events. That's what these 7 are accomplishing. As you get into the remaining categories, then we get a little bit more into details about those subject matters. But just know that these are the 7 that we're going to focus on first. But we also have bonuses. And who doesn't love a good bonus? So category 9 is your bonus expectations. Now, these are going above and beyond the 37 standards that we have defined. The whole purpose of this is hopefully to raise your level of success and get a little bit of credit for it. There are 2 standards in the bonuses. I think that almost everybody should be able to have something for standard 9.2, which is just, hey, are you doing something beyond these 37 standards that you can lift up and tell us about? Just know that institutions are not required to do bonus standards or do both standards. So if you only have one of the 2, then provide documentation for that. We'll just give you what you're awarded. So we're going to talk about the CPSI application documentation. And again, this will be found on the CPSI website by December 31st. We're hopeful to get it sooner than that, but that will be the last day that for sure it will be available. There are going to be 3 documents that you can look at. There'll be an eligible institution list. There'll be the CPSI awards submission notification of interest, the application, or the CPSI award upload list. So those are the 3 things that will be available. And we're going to go through each one of those. So CPSI eligible institutions, this is straight out of the field guide, but we're going to look at designated Indiana public colleges and universities. We will look at the CHE Board of Proprietary Education, the BPE, and designated independent colleges of Indiana. So all of those that I just mentioned will actually list every single institution under the appropriate category. So if you're not sure if your institution is an eligible institution, you can go to this list first, find your name. That would be the first step. If you find your name, then you would want to proceed on. Next item that we're going to look at is the award submission. And I changed the name to a notification of interest because an application is kind of daunting. So this is just a 1-pager. And I want to basically pull your attention to the things that I have in bold, trying to get you to think about this. So when it is ready, you'll already have the information. But we're going to ask for your legal name of your institution. The things that you're going to have to do a little bit more work for is who's going to be the primary contact? Who gets the award notification, any updates, if we have evaluation questions, anything else during this whole process, this would be the person that we would reach out to. And then it would be up to this person to go find the appropriate information and report back. The other thing is which individuals are authorized to upload documents. Now, it could be the same person as the primary contact, or you may want to have a totally different group or a combination. That's up to each institution to decide. But the process is going to be that we will set up a Microsoft SharePoint folder for each institution that completes a notification of interest form. And based on that form, I will take whoever you say is the authorized individuals and give them access to the folder so they can upload documents. That will be the process that we will use. Please note that your institution may not use any other form of uploading portal. You can't give me a link to your own internal drive or a Dropbox or Google Docs, because the Indiana Office of Technology, IoT, does not always recognize those. So experience in a past life, institutions have tried to do that, and we were blocked out from IoT, or we couldn't get all of the information. So this way, we're going to provide access to a folder that we can control, and we know that we have access through the state of Indiana. And there'll be a few also general directions on this notification of interest, like when things have to be submitted, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, what you're going to be looking at least between now and the time that the interest form is available, is who's going to be our primary contact and who do I want to upload documents? What's their name? What's their email? So kind of your homework between now and the end of the month. Here's some uploading notes. And this is just my random thoughts. So first, submit documentation for standards that are not applicable. So yes, there are going to be standards within the field guide that don't apply to your institution, but I need you to give me some information so we can rule that out as something that we're going to grade for you. So if you're I know this is a dumb, simple one, but if you're an online only institution and this standard doesn't apply to you, then give me something that shows that you're an online only institution. Or if you have a certain study tables example for all of your students, anybody can go to these, they're free of charge. So one of the standards doesn't apply to you, then just give us some kind of documentation to show that that's your institution policy. And then we'll just take it out of the scoring system completely. But you will have to prove that standards are not applicable. I can't just take your word that, hey, that doesn't apply to me. It's my compliance mindset. Also, there may be times where you want to provide an agenda to support documentation that something occurred. An agenda in accompanying other documentation might be acceptable, but don't give just the agenda, because that's demonstrating what you plan to do at, say, a meeting or an event. It doesn't actually always say, that doesn't always mean that's what occurred. So in that case, you may want to provide meeting minutes to accompany the agenda so we get a full picture of what occurred. Double check the links. There's going to be a lot of opportunity, especially with technology and institutions and their websites and different pages have information. Just make sure if you're going to provide us a link to something, that the link works and that the link takes us to where you want it to go. More specifically, is it to a document? Not necessarily a general page where we're trying to figure out where you're trying to guide us and we have to go poking around trying to find something. So the old adage, lead a horse to water. And that's a good follow-up to the final thought was, if you're going to give us documentation and buried in it is what you want us to read, please just highlight it first. So that way we can immediately focus on what you want us to see and we can move on. So those are kind of those little helpful hints, things to know when you're uploading your documents. Now there will be an uploading list. These directions will be in there as well, but I'm just kind of giving you guys some things to think about as you're putting things together now. Keep this in mind. Now, a reminder, an institution is not required to meet all the standards beyond Category 1. So there may be standards you decide you're not doing, and you're only going to be providing documentation for those 7 core standards. Again, anything that's not applicable, and then any standard you wish us to evaluate. So keep that in mind. So here's our estimated or our process timeline. All the documents must be uploaded by 5 o'clock on Monday, January 30th. And you're going to upload those again to that SharePoint file, the folder following the naming convention. So when you look at the upload list, it will give you examples. So it may say 1.1, and it'll give you a description of what you're uploading. 1.2 may have like 1.2a and 1.2b and have descriptions. So you're going to follow that naming convention when you upload the documents. That will allow the review team to quickly and easily find the document associated with the standard. And if we have specific questions, we can go back to that specific standard, and then you can see what you provided. In the past, it's very easy sometimes to upload things to the wrong place. So at least we'll have a common communication thread. So follow those directions. The review evaluation committee is going to be starting in February through April. That's our best guess. We do not know how many institutions are going to apply. So it's the best we can do right now. The evaluation team is going to be made up of CHE and IDVA staff and any other subject matter experts that we need for a specific standard. We may request additional information, so we're reading through, maybe we don't understand something, we may reach out with a question, and that will just be as needed. Sometimes it makes sense to you because you're in your world and you live in it every day, and sometimes you get into the shorthand. But since we're doing so many different institutions, we may ask simple questions like, hey, what does this mean? Or is there another name for this? And ultimately, what's going to happen with this evaluation committee is we'll determine your performance-based award. So that's kind of the overview. Monday, January 30th is the timeline to submit all documents. The evaluation committee will begin and we'll do our thing. Point structure. So I told you there's 37 standards and each standard's worth a point. So if you just kind of wanted to look at it, it gives you kind of a breakdown of how many points are in each category. Now, with that, because we know that there'll be not applicables, this is kind of like the maximum if you were to do all 37 standards. Since some they may not apply, the total may be adjusted or will be adjusted. Here's the CPI award certificate levels. So tier 3 is 70 to 79%. Tier 2 is 80 to 89%. Tier 1 is 90 to 99%. And then the special commission distinction 100%. So as I said, there'll be a value assigned to each standard that will allow the review committee to supply your performance score, which will be then used to determine which level you have achieved. There is no partially met, so you're either going to meet it and get a point, or you don't meet it and you get 0 points. If there is a standard where no information is submitted and it's not applicable, then it's considered not met. So best case scenario, is for an example, is if you get 37 out of 37, that's 100% for all standards, and you get the special commission distinction. But we got bonus points. And again, those are opportunities to assist institutions that are kind of close in achieving a higher level. So any bonus points will be added to the success rate, that base score that you have achieved. The goal is so it positively impacts your overall performance score. So an example is if you got 35 out of the 37, but you had both bonus points. Well, then that means you got 37 out of 37, so now you got 100%. This is a good example for those who could be on the line. So if you got 25 out of the 37 standards, that's 67.5%. But with one bonus point, that bumps you up to 26 out of 37, and now you're at 70.3%. So now you're at tier 3. So before you weren't going to get an award, that one bonus point kicked you up into a tier 3 award. Again, not applicable, may apply to some standards depending on your institution. We tried to make the standards flexible enough for the diversity that we have within our institutions. And those will automatically be removed from the scoring. So an example, you could end up with a 33 out of a 33 and get 100% and still get the special commission distinction. I already know that there are 3 standards, 5.1, 8.1, and 8.2, where we've already said we're not reviewing those for this year because there wasn't enough time to give you each institution and lay the groundwork if this didn't already exist. So there'll be you'll see some of that as well. So once again, we have 3 tiers. They're on a percentage. And we'll add bonuses, and we will take not applicables out of the ratio. Keep in mind, I'm sorry, I'm reading as we're going along. There are 3 standards right now as you go through the field guide. And they will tell you that they're not applicable for fiscal year 2025, which is the period that we're in now. And off the top of my head, I believe it's 5.1, 8.1, and 8.2. So as you're going through the standard, you'll see that I put it in a big bold that they're not applicable for this year. So and when I have the uploading list will also say they're not applicable. So I won't even really give you the ability to upload something. I'm going to tell you this right there on the uploading list. So kind of coming back to our timeline again, the award notification. Our goal is to have something out by mid-April. Now, again, that's our goal. We also would like to provide an award submission report, but that can be done a little bit later. So it will be kind of your official record of performance. It'll provide your score, an overall performance chart, a brief description of the standards you haven't met, recommendations possibly. We're still in the process of developing that, but that doesn't stop us from notifying institutions, hey, we're already going to know once we evaluate where your score is. So we'll be telling everybody, at least hopefully by mid-April. And then the report will follow and be kind of the official record. And that's where, if there are things that you weren't met, then you can start working on for the future. As a reminder, with this process, if you're not successful this year, or you came in and you got a 70% and now you've got a whole nother year going into next year and you want to apply again, that's fine. This is flexible. We want to see people continuing to excel and trying to get better. So the award will be open each year for everyone who wants to continue to advance. Some miscellaneous thoughts. This is me. Please be patient with us. This is our first year. Now, we are in the process of developing forms, evaluation tools, the reports, all the documentation that we talked about, the upload list, the interest form. Those are all things that we're currently developing right now. It's just because this is the inaugural year. So this is what you do. Next year will be a little easier. It's going to be a learning curve for everyone. You're going to have questions for us. We're going to have questions for you. But what I can promise you is that we go through this process the first year. Every year, we will fine tune it and it will get better. It will get easier. We will have more guidance, more experiences that we can share. And it will be easier for institutions who are beginning the journey to follow in the footsteps of you who have blazed a trail for success, because we'll be able to use your lessons learned and share that with them. So with that, let's stop sharing. So I'm going to kind of open it up for questions. And feel free to unmute yourself and shout out if you have a question. Again, the awards are for a 3-year period, but that doesn't stop you from reapplying every year if you wish, and you'll get a new set of 3 years. So if you start off at a 70% and you're like, hey, I was only one standard away from getting an 80%, I'll have that done by next year, reapply, no problem. And if you get moved up to the next year, then you get a new 3 years from that date. Well, I will say it's been an interesting journey these last 6 months. We've had some great guest speakers talk. We've had great information. We have learned a lot. And hopefully this educational series was beneficial to all of you. And if this is something you'd like to continue, maybe not on a monthly basis, but maybe on a quarterly or semi-annual get together and talk about different topics that are affecting us, everyone has the email. Please send us your thoughts, because that's something that we can look at for 2026 and beyond. But does anyone have any questions? If not, hey, I got this done in record time. Again, the end of the month is when the interest form, the uploading list, and the eligibility list will be available. With Christmas and all that stuff, we push it back just a little bit, but it will be there. And you have the CPSI mailbox. So if you have questions, please send those to that address. So you got a question? I will send out an email when they are posted. So I'll use this same grouping, and I'll just give you an information that they're available. And we'll also send out a press release officially probably the first full week in January. Anthony, you got a question? Go ahead.
So, Steve, my question's regarding standard 7.4. So, as you know, with higher ed, getting actual stuff built on campus takes forever. So, as of right now, we have a plan set for actual military service recognition area. I'm guessing it's like a statue or something like that along those lines of what standard 7.4 says. But we got budget approval. We're just waiting for for it to actually start. Can I just submit the project planning along the way as proof for that one?
I would actually need it to be completed.
Okay.
Just because things could change between now and the plan. So once it's done, you can apply and receive credit for that.
Okay.
Will you be sending out your slides?
Yes, I will post those to the website in the next couple days.
Thank you.
And I think I still owe everyone 2 handouts from last month, so those will be posted as well. Well, if we don't have any other questions, everybody have a wonderful day. Again, you've got the CPSI email, so if you think of something between now And whenever, just shoot us an email. I appreciate everybody's time, and you guys have a wonderful holiday, which is coming up very shortly.